With that being said, you big dummies, you getting paid now.
Right.
Everybody now has an opportunity to pull.
Over the past year, Cheryl Miller has consistently targeted Caitlin Clark with a series of controversial claims. She argued that Clark, at 25 years old, was competing against much younger players, that her rookie season had been underwhelming, and that teammates allegedly did not want to play alongside her. These attacks were relentless and seemed to persist endlessly, creating a narrative that questioned Clark's legitimacy as a rising star. The accusations painted Clark as someone struggling to adapt to professional basketball despite her evident talent and impact on the court. This barrage of criticism was amplified across podcasts, social media, and sports commentary, fueling debates about Clark's capabilities. Fans and analysts alike were forced to digest repeated claims that appeared increasingly out of touch with the facts. What made the situation especially striking was the intensity and persistence of Miller's rhetoric. Over time, it became a continuous storyline, overshadowing Clark's real achievements and milestones. The barrage seemed not just to target Clark's performance, but to cast doubt on her overall career trajectory. For anyone following the WNBA, these criticisms created a polarizing discussion around one of the league's brightest young stars. Despite the sustained attack, Clark remained composed on the court, demonstrating her skills game after game, quietly refuting the negative narratives through performance. Yet, the off-court controversy set the stage for a dramatic intervention that would eventually shift the conversation entirely in Clark's favor.
They will recognize, her game, but they won't recognize her impact.
Right.
How can you separate the two? It's kind of hard, right?
Jax, you're absolutely right. And I was like...
The legendary basketball figure, Cheryl Miller, then entered the conversation and completely dismantled the misleading claims. Known for her remarkable career and coaching expertise, Miller didn't hold back. She openly criticized the All the Smoke podcast and its host, Swoops, calling out the inaccuracies and absurdities in their coverage of Caitlin Clark. With her presence and authority, Miller delivered a decisive rebuttal, essentially delivering a knockout blow to the narrative that had unfairly targeted Clark. Miller's intervention wasn't just a defense of Clark's performance on the court. It also hinted at a potential shift in the Indiana Fever's future. Fans were elated to witness someone of Miller's stature stepping in to correct the record. Her words carried weight, combining both expert analysis and personal experience with Clark as a player. She emphasized Clark's legitimate talent, work ethic, and impact, contrasting sharply with the exaggerated and often false claims spread by others. The reaction among fans was immediate and enthusiastic. Social media buzzed with excitement, and supporters of Clark felt vindicated by Miller's defense. It became clear that her credibility and insight into basketball dynamics offered an authoritative perspective, challenging misinformation while reaffirming Clark's place as one of the WNBA's rising stars. The episode left fans energized and curious, eager to see how this public defense might influence both Clark's career and the atmosphere within the Indiana Fever.
Two-time national championship, two-time tournament MVP, first woman to dunk in an organized game, gold medalist. Thank you for making time. Welcome to the show.
Before diving into everything Cheryl Miller said, it's worth pausing to consider why one of basketball's all-time greats appeared so determined to challenge the criticisms against Caitlin Clark. Miller's intensity wasn't random. It stemmed from a long-standing awareness of the extraordinary talent Clark brought to the court. From Clark's college days to her rookie season in the WNBA, there had been an unusual campaign of critiques that questioned her legitimacy as a top player, her age, her ability to compete with peers, and even her interpersonal dynamics with teammates. Miller understood both the pressures and the unfairness that Clark faced. She recognized that part of the reason the criticism persisted was a lack of context, often mixed with exaggeration or misinformation. The veteran coach and former player saw patterns in these narratives that the average fan might miss: inflated claims, skewed statistics, and misinterpretations of Clark's playing style and college experience. By stepping forward, Miller wasn't just defending a player. She was challenging an entire misleading narrative and reclaiming the story around Clark's abilities. Her approach combined authority with first-hand knowledge, having coached Clark and observed her in high-pressure situations. Fans instantly noticed the difference. The clarity, insight, and credibility Miller brought injected new energy into the conversation, showing that sometimes experience and perspective are the most powerful tools in setting the record straight.
How much more experience that gives you over other players coming in, right? So people say, dang, like he or she's killing them, but you have a 25-year-old playing against...
The controversy really began when Swoops made several inaccurate claims about Clark's college career. She falsely insisted that Clark was 25 years old while competing against younger players during her time at Iowa, a statement that was not just exaggerated, but completely misleading. In reality, Clark was 22 and in her fourth year of college play, like many seniors in her program. When questioned, Swoops attempted to justify this falsehood by blaming COVID-related eligibility rules, claiming it was a minor exaggeration. Yet, this defense fell flat and did little to restore credibility. Beyond age, Swoops also criticized Clark's playing style, labeling her a selfish, volume shooter who allegedly attempted 40 shots per game. Clark's actual average, however, was 22.7 shots per game, a far cry from Swoops' claim. Ironically, Swoops herself averaged only slightly fewer shots in her college days, which made her criticism seem even more absurd. As Clark approached the all-time NCAA scoring record, Swoops further undermined her, suggesting she would need a fifth year to break it, a projection that ignored Clark's actual path. Miller saw through all of this immediately. She recognized that these attacks were not only inaccurate, but also unnecessary, and they misrepresented the reality of Clark's skill, discipline, and determination. By highlighting these inconsistencies, Miller positioned herself as the authoritative voice capable of separating fact from fiction.
40 shots a game.
Carry on.
I know you like that.
Hell yeah.
I said that because when she comes to the league, regardless of what team she goes to that has vets on that team,
Swoops didn't stop at exaggerating Clark's college performance. She also criticized her as a self-centered shooter, claiming Clark averaged 40 shots per game. In reality, Clark's shot attempts were much lower, at 22.7 per game, showing a balanced approach rather than selfish play. Ironically, Swoops herself averaged 19.2 shots during her senior year, just slightly fewer than Clark, which made her criticism appear hypocritical and tone-deaf. This glaring contradiction highlighted how Swoops was projecting false narratives rather than analyzing the facts. The criticisms intensified when Clark neared the NCAA's all-time scoring record. Swoops suggested Clark would need a fifth year to surpass it, ignoring the fact that Clark had opted to enter the WNBA immediately. This misleading prediction painted Clark as incapable of achieving greatness on her own timeline, undermining her achievements and minimizing her talent. Cheryl Miller, who had first-hand experience coaching Clark during the 2025 All-Star Game, saw these claims for what they were, unfounded and sensationalized. She recognized Clark's determination, skill, and intelligence on the court, and understood how damaging these public attacks could be to a young player trying to establish herself in the league. By stepping in, Miller provided clarity and context, offering an honest assessment that contrasted sharply with Swoops' distorted version of events.
if you're going to break a record, to me, if it's legitimate, you have to break that record in the same amount of time that that player set it.
Okay.
Right? So if Kelsey Plum set that record in 4 years, well, Caitlin should have broke that record in 4 years. But because there's a COVID year and then there's another year, you know what I mean? So she's already had an extra year to break that record. So is it truly?
When Swoops appeared on Angel Reese's podcast, she continued to criticize Clark, insisting she didn't harbor personal dislike, yet her words suggested otherwise. This contradiction exemplified a troubling pattern, speaking one thing publicly while subtly undermining Clark behind the scenes. The basketball community began noticing this inconsistency, which eventually led to Swoops being barred from broadcasting Indiana Fever games. Veterans like Nancy Lieberman openly criticized Swoops' spreading of misleading information, further highlighting the problematic nature of her commentary. Cheryl Miller's entrance into the discussion was a turning point. As someone with direct coaching experience with Clark, Miller dismantled the misinformation with authority and credibility. Her voice carried weight not just because of her Hall of Fame career, Olympic gold medals, and multiple NCAA championships, but also because she had observed Clark's growth firsthand. Miller's defense demonstrated that Clark's talent, work ethic, and leadership were undeniable, countering years of exaggeration and false narratives. The impact of Miller's intervention went beyond statistics. It emphasized the human side of Clark's journey, the resilience, focus, and emotional strength required to thrive amid relentless criticism. Miller's support provided validation, encouragement, and a clear message to the basketball world. Clark's accomplishments are real, and her potential is enormous. This marked a critical moment in redefining the conversation around one of the WNBA's brightest stars.
What I said was I didn't think Caitlin or Angel would come into the league and dominate immediately, which I don't think either of them did.
Respectfully, there is absolutely no way, even when we're trying to sit here and play semantics about dominating, there's no way that anyone could ever leave this season in saying that both Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese didn't dominate. You would have to further explain what dominance means for you to not sit here and say that a player who is leading the league in assists while averaging 19 to 20 points.
The situation escalated when Swoop's commentary became too disruptive to ignore, ultimately resulting in her being prohibited from broadcasting Fever games. The basketball community, aware of her repeated misrepresentations, could no longer allow her influence to spread unchecked. Figures like Nancy Lieberman stepped in to publicly correct the record, challenging Swoop's narrative and defending Clark's achievements. Lieberman's credibility added weight to the criticism, highlighting that the rookie's accomplishments were being misrepresented and that the league needed reliable voices to maintain fairness. Enter Cheryl Miller, whose arrival on the All the Smoke podcast provided a powerful and authoritative counterpoint to Swoop's claims. Miller's perspective was rooted in direct experience, having coached Clark in the 2025 WNBA All-Star Game. Her observations offered clarity and context, contrasting sharply with the exaggerated criticisms that had circulated for months. Miller not only defended Clark statistically, but also illustrated the intangible qualities that make her an exceptional player: leadership, court vision, and the ability to inspire teammates. By addressing both the misinformation and the emotional challenges Clark faced, Miller's intervention shifted the narrative. Fans, commentators, and aspiring players could now see a more accurate portrayal of Clark's talent and character. Miller's actions underscored the importance of credible voices in sports media and reinforced Clark's growing reputation as one of the WNBA's most promising stars.
College, I helped do her shoe deal with Nike in 1993, took her to her first ESPYs. I've known Cheryl, I've coached her, have a lot of respect for her. I called her when Caitlin was still playing at Iowa and she had just broken Maravich's record. And it was all over the place, as you and I have discussed, that, there was this quote by Cheryl that said, Caitlin was, 25 years old. She was, however old, 24 years old. She was a fifth-year senior. Right. She was taking 40 shots a game. Her records.
The basketball world finally had a trustworthy voice in the Caitlin Clark conversation when Cheryl Miller stepped into the All the Smoke podcast studio. Her presence immediately shifted the narrative, providing a level of authenticity and authority that had been missing amid the constant criticisms. Miller's experience as a legendary player and a former coach of Clark gave her insight into both the technical and personal aspects of Clark's game. She didn't just speak from theory. She had seen Clark in action, understood her decision-making, and witnessed the impact of her leadership on the court. Miller's intervention exposed the flaws in the detractors' arguments, highlighting that Clark's achievements were not just the result of luck or hype, but the product of skill, intelligence, and relentless effort. She dissected the ongoing misconceptions with clarity, pointing out factual errors, while also illustrating Clark's ability to elevate her team and dominate within the system. By defending Clark with such depth and credibility, Miller essentially silenced much of the uninformed chatter surrounding the rookie star. This moment was significant not only for Clark, but for the broader perception of women's basketball. It demonstrated the importance of having experienced, respected figures counteract misinformation and set the record straight. Miller's defense became a turning point, emphasizing that Clark's talent and impact on the game deserved recognition, and that true expertise could challenge the pervasive myths spread by less informed commentators.